Hello, dear friends. Welcome to Spirit Reports of Life After Life. We're studying the cases in the second part of Heaven and Hell. Allan, Kardec, and the mediums, and of course the spirits who cooperated, gifted us with a multitude of lessons from all the different categories of spirits reporting back about their life after life. So these are discarnates who are teaching us and telling us of their experience. And we also learn a little bit about the lives, the incarnated lives they lived, so we can better understand of what the consequences were they experienced. And consequently for us, the lessons are very clear. Some teach us of what we can do, but there's a lot of categories, like the current one that we're studying, the cases which are the hardened spirits, where it is more like, okay, this is not what I want to do it, because I don't want to end up like this or that spirit. But then we turn it around and we look at how we can do it better. Those are the lessons that we are focusing on. We're live broadcasting from Northern California. My name is Sunshine Beck, and welcome, dear Carol. So lovely to have you. And there's some other friends, so please feel free to say hello. It is always so much more fun when we know who is there and we can interact. So dear friends, today we will be studying another case in our beautiful book. It is a hardened spirit and her name is Angele. We'll call her Angele. The spelling is a little bit different than Angel, but we don't know exactly how the French version of her name would be. So Angele is on 477, page 477. She's a hardened spirit, and it is called, the subtitle is A Uselessness on Earth. So let us buckle up. This will be interesting. So this was an invocation that happened in Bordeaux, France in 1862. Have you repented for your wrongs? She's being asked, and the answer is no. Then why have you come? To try to do so. Aren't you happy then? No. Then what do you lack? Peace. How is it that you lack peace in the spirit life? Regret of the past. Regret of the past means remorse. Have you repented then? No. It is for fear of the future, she says. What are you afraid of? She says, the unknown. So this gives us a hint that she most likely did not educate herself about life after life. She wasn't really clear about what would happen, whether there would even be a life after life. So no education in that regard. Now the next question. Would you be willing to tell me what you did during your last existence? Perhaps that would help me to enlighten you. Guess what the answer was? Nothing. What was your social position? Middle class. Were you married? I was a wife and mother. Did you zealously fulfill the duties of both positions? No. My husband and kids bored me. How did you spend your life? Entertaining myself as a young girl, getting bored as a young woman. What were your occupations? None. Who looked after your house? The maid. Isn't it in this uselessness that you might find the cause of your regrets and fears? Maybe you're right. Agreeing is not enough, Angel. Would you like to atone for that useless existence by helping the guilty spirits suffering around us? She says, how? By helping them improve themselves with your counsels and prayers? I don't know how to pray. We will do it together. You will learn. Would you like to? No. Why not? It's tiresome. And that is the end of the invocation. Can you guys believe it? So let us work with this a little bit. In this particular case, we're gifted with an instructions by the Medium's Guide. The Medium's Guide is Monod, M-O-N-O-D. And we're going to learn quite a bit of it. Now, I want to first say hello to friends. Hi, Tony. So nice to have you here. And then there is Raza, dear friend. Thank you for joining us. Renata Casate. And more. Please say hello if you like. So, we clearly experience her as being lazy and bored, right? And we're not saying that with judgment. That's just an observation. And of course, we can already kind of, if we like, during this whole taking this case apart, talking about it, to kind of see, do I have parts of this in me? And do I feel inclined to being this way? Or, oh, no, not me. I'm working 24/7. So, let's see. Angel was one of those individuals without initiative, whose lives are as useless to others as to themselves. Loving only pleasure, incapable of seeking an education, and in the fulfillment of her familial and social duties, lacking those satisfactions of the heart that make life so appealing because they belong to all ages. She was unable to spend her youth on anything but frivolous distraction. So Angel her life was useless. She only loved pleasure. She was incapable of seeking an education. She couldn't fulfill her familial and social duties. She didn't feel like it. And in her youth, she fulfilled her life with frivolous distractions. And when more serious obligations arose, the world was empty around her because she had placed emptiness in her heart. So there was nothing. Her heart wasn't open. Her heart wasn't engaged. Consequently, she surrounded herself with emptiness. Committing no serious wrongs. Now, this is important. Committing no serious wrongs, but displaying no special qualities either, she made her husband miserable, compromised her children's futures, and ruined their well-being by her negligence and indifference. She perverted their hearts and judgment by her example and by abandoning them to the care of household servants whom she hadn't even put forth the effort to choose. Her life was unfruitful and therefore blameworthy, for evil originates from neglecting the good. You must all understand that it is not enough to abstain from error. You must also practice the virtues that oppose it. So let us pause a little bit. Our friend did not commit any serious wrongs. So this is important to note. There is no such thing really as having a neutral life, even though we may want to believe it. But we're learning that the consequences from living a life, even if we don't commit any serious wrongs, has consequences. And question 975 in the Spirits book breaks down most beautifully of how we feel we're being held accountable after what we've done or not done. So number one, we are accountable. So we can take down notes so we can bring that into our life experience and our daily practice. This is really vital that we are aware of this. So number one, you must remember that the spirit suffers for all the wrong it has done or which it has intentionally caused. For all the good, so this is number one. So we are liable, law of cause and effect, we will experience an effect for all the wrong we have done. So whenever we are idle, whenever we are not doing the good, we are liable. Whenever we turn towards ignorance, we're liable. That's number one. Number two, we're liable for all the good that we might have done but didn't. So now the bar is being raised. We're also responsible for all the good that wasn't done because we were lazy. We couldn't get out of bed. We couldn't get off the couch. We just like to eat and drink. That kind of stuff. Not doing anything. Like our friend here, Angel. So all the good that gets omitted as a result of our laziness or emptiness, we're liable for. Can you imagine? Now it gets even a little bit stronger. We're also liable for all the harm that resulted from the good we failed to do. So now, if we throw the banana peel on the road and somebody slips, so even the act of throwing the banana peel is already not doing the good, right? Because we're littering. So that's mistake number one. Now somebody comes by and doesn't pick it up and slips on it and breaks a leg. Now, we're liable for that too. We're co-liable for that because we threw that banana peel on the street out of our ignorance, on the sidewalk out of our ignorance. So this is harm that resulted from the good we didn't do. We didn't pick it up, but we actually threw it. As a matter of fact, if somebody else throws it, we walk by, we don't pick it up, and now somebody slips and breaks their leg. We're still co-liable because we didn't pick it up. So this is just one silly example to make this clear, but the bar is pretty high from the high spirits, from the spirits on high, and hopefully we'll take that into our hearts, and we may ask ourselves a therapeutic question: where am I in this? Where are we in this? Are we really taking every opportunity to do the good? Or are we feeling sometimes, oh no, today I'm staying in bed, or it's the quarantine, I can't leave, so there's nothing good I can do, right? So that's kind of for us to look into. Of course, she displays a case of bad parenting. She essentially abandons her children out of her laziness and lack of interest by modeling laziness and lack of interest, vacuousness to her children. That's one. The next one, she is not emotionally or physically present. She doesn't even care to pick out the nannies. And it's not that she has a pressing reason to have a nanny or someone to take care, to have servants, so to speak. So this is definitely, she's planting bad seeds in her garden of eternity there too. So thus those who wish to avoid evil must choose the opposite path. So what is the opposite path? The opposite path is always to do good. And to do good not only puts beautiful seeds into our garden, and which then later on will create a very luscious harvest for us, but it also helps us to undo past wrongs. And it is Instructor Rebus in Life Goes On who gives us a beautiful summary of this. And I want to quote, "Many times the work we do for others can grant us a priceless loan of energy and means to help us repent and ascend, which otherwise may take many years of effort." So in other words, if we do the good, if we help others, it grants us a priceless loan of energy and helps us to recuperate from our own wrongs that invariably we've done, even if it's not this lifetime, in past lifetimes. Otherwise, we wouldn't be incarnated on planet Earth. It helps us to undo our past wrongs quicker, and it cuts down on our suffering. And in the meantime, we put the good seeds into our garden for the future. So there is a win-win-win. There is no losing. So our Instructor Rebus is beautifully explaining that. You can find that in Life Goes On page 98. Another beautiful example. Of course, Jesus, in his Beatitude, taught us, he said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons and daughters of God." Now, when we do the good, from our thinking and feeling on out to our speech and our actions, we become peacemakers. We are instrumental in creating the good. Now, St. Francis created a beautiful prayer of peace, it's also called, where we learn to become an instrument of peace. How to become an instrument of peace, how to become a peacemaker. And the strategy is beautiful. It is always acting charitably and to do the good. How? How does he suggest us? He gives us a beautiful recipe to become peacemakers, to do the good, to undo past wrong and to do the good, to be the opposite of what Angele was and to learn from her indolence. So we're invited to sow love wherever there is hatred. Whenever we see hatred in the world, let us sow love. Let us create a soul fantasy. How can that look like? We pause, we recognize, oh, there's hatred in this space. There's hatred in this connection, in this situation. How can I sow love? Further on, we're invited to pardon every injury, to always see the good, to pardon the injury. We are invited to have faith where there is doubt. Whenever there is doubt, we're invited to have faith. Faith in God. Love God above all things and our neighbors as ourselves. And we're invited to have hope and not despair. Wherever there is despair, let us plant a beautiful seed of hope. And where there is darkness, let us bring light in. A pat on the shoulder, a smile, a rose, a compliment, a different perspective. There's so many ways of bringing light into darkness. And where there is sadness, joy, always bringing joy. And we are further invited not so much to seek consolation, but rather to console. So when we feel we need something from somebody else, let us give it exactly what we're missing. We're invited to give it. So that means we're not so much looking to be understood than to understand others. By understanding, looking for understanding in others, in other situations, we will find understanding for our own self. And the last one is, instead of looking to be loved, instead of going into groups and relationships, always looking to receive something, to receive love, to receive understanding, to receive consolation, let us give it. And let us use our own needs as the compass to give exactly what we believe we need. That is the recipe to become a peacemaker. That is the recipe to be of service. And by being of service, helping others, we not only undo our past wrongs and accelerate our transformation, but we also plant beautiful, wholesome seeds in our gardens of eternity. And it is springtime, so this is a good time to talk about seeds and do our planting diligently and consciously. So let us go back to our angel here. We're on top of page 480. May I ask what Angel's next to last existence was? So Angel is discarnated. She reports back. And now the question is, how was her life like before her life in the spirit world? So the incarnation before the last one, where she was the mother and wife and didn't take care of the children well. So here's the answer. She lived in beatific indolence, so in blissful laziness, and the uselessness of the monastic life. So she was in a monastery, in a blissfully lazy state in a monastery. Lazy and selfish by nature, she next wanted to try out a family, but her spirit had evolved very little. So from one incarnation where she was in a monastery, she all of a sudden wanted to have a family. In the next life, she had the family, but her spirit hadn't really evolved much. Now, why would we read here that there was blissful laziness in a monastery? Why wasn't there? Let us look into that. There's a chapter in Spirit's book. It's called The Contemplative Life. It's in the Spirit's book, part 3, chapter 2, Law of Worship. And it's question 657. 657. We're almost there. Bear with me. And it's a tiny chapter. It's called The Contemplative Life. So that could be a monastic life. And Allan Kardec is wondering, do those who dedicate themselves to the contemplative life, doing nothing wrongful and thinking only of God, have any merit in the divine sight? Good question. So they're not doing anything wrong. They're only thinking of God. Do they have any merit from the divine perspective? And the answer is no, they don't have any merit. Wow. Now let us find out why the good spirits, the higher spirits are saying that. No, There is no merit from the divine perspective in a life like this. Even though they do nothing wrongful, neither do they do any good, and they are useless. Moreover, not doing good is in itself wrongful, and we learned that earlier. Even if we live a so-called neutral life, which doesn't really exist, we're still missing the opportunities of doing good, and we're liable for that. And all the harm that results from the good we're missing to do, we're liable for as well. So that makes sense now, right? God wants men and women to think about God, but does not want them to do only that. For God has given them duties to fulfill. Those who spend all their time in meditation and contemplation do nothing meritorious before God, since their life is entirely personal and of no use to humankind. God will ask them to account for the good they did not do. So now we know. So we're not going to go into a monastery and become a monk, and we're not judging those who make that decision, because I'm sure in previous lives we have been nuns, or we've been monks, or we've lived a monastic life, right? So it's not for us to judge, it's just for us to educate ourselves, to open our eyes, so that now as we're moving forward and we're evolving, we're not falling into the same trap again. We're living our lives and we're looking to do the good. We learned that now. So let us continue. Human beings have been created to be active. Monad is teaching us. The activity of the spirit, that is the essence. The activity of the body, that is a necessity. So I'm going to say that again because that's important. So human beings have been created to be active. The activity of the spirit, so the spirit is active, that is the essence. That's our essence. The activity of our bodies, that is a necessity. Since your body is meant to serve you, it is nothing more than a machine subordinate to your intelligence, right? So we're connected to our physical forms, to our physical vests, via the perispirit, molecule by molecule. It is linked to our physical body. So our physical body becomes our vehicle, because on its own, and we see that when the perispirit and the soul have detached themselves from the physical body, our physical body is inert. It doesn't have any intelligence. It is our spirit that spiritualizes, that makes that instrument move, work, speak, think. And that comes from the spirit, right? So, since your body is meant to serve you, it is nothing more than a machine subordinate to your intelligence, and that resides in our spirit. Work to cultivate your intelligence so that it may provide a healthy impulse to the instrument that must aid it in the fulfillment of its task. So we're invited to work to cultivate your intelligence so that it may provide a healthy impulse to the instrument, namely our body, that must aid it in the fulfillment of its tasks. So the body aids us in fulfilling our tasks while we're educating ourselves of how to perfect ourselves in that execution, so to speak. Grant the body neither rest nor repose, and keep in mind that the peace to which you aspire will only come after work. So peace will only come after work. And as we just learned in the St. Francis prayer, we see where our work lies, right? We're always giving instead of looking to receive, and using our own needs, unfulfilled needs, as a guidepost of what we may want to give right there, because by giving we receive. So that is part of our work. Thus, the more you neglect work, the longer the anxiety will be for you while waiting. Work without stopping. Whew, so we're exhausted just reading that, right? So it begs us, it invites us to look at the law of labor, right? Because we're over and over invited to work. Let's see, let's educate ourselves. There is a number of questions that will help us understand the law of labor better, so that we will not feel so overwhelmed. Because when we align, when we educate ourselves, when we educate our will, it becomes easier. But if somebody just tells us, hey, you have to work, Maybe not, right? So the mind needs to be educated. Question 674 is the law of labor. Beautiful. By the way, Carol Correa did an amazing study every Saturday afternoon, and she still does that, about the divine laws. And I know she's done the law of labor already. So this is a beautiful study to go back. You can find it on Kardec video. I'm sure you can find it on YouTube too, Carol, if you wanted to post it in there, of how people can go back and find your beautiful presentations. Maybe that will be of help. So question 674, the necessity of labor. Is the necessity of labor a law of nature? So the fact that we need to work, is that God's law? The answer is labor is a law of nature. It's God's law. And as such, it is a necessity per se. So labor is a necessity because civilization both increases people's needs and their enjoyments. It obliges them to work more. As we progress, our needs and our enjoyments change, increase, so we have to work for that. It doesn't fall from the sky, right? So question 675, should we understand labor to entail only material occupations? So is labor only working with our bodies? And the answer is no. No, it's not only material. The spirit labors as much as the body. Wow, that's news, right? Every useful occupation is labor. Every useful occupation is labor. That's a lot. So now we understand. Maybe we feel better now. Because as long as we are embarking on a useful occupation, then that falls under labor. And doing the good is definitely a useful occupation. And it starts with our thinking, right? So there's a lot that falls under that. Why has labor been imposed on humankind? Why? Why do we think is labor a God-given law? The answer is, it is a consequence of humankind's corporeal nature. It is a means of expiation, of undoing past wrongs, and at the same time a means of perfecting their intelligence. Through labor, we learn. Without labor, humans would remain an intellectual infancy. So labor helps us to undo past wrongs and to perfect ourselves. And when we work for the good, we put good seeds. We're good gardeners. We plant a good future. Carol, I will post the link after you. Okay, wonderful, Carol. Beautiful. Hi, Teresa. Hi, Melissa. Hi, Nora Basil. Hello, friends. Anna Paula, so nice to have you. Let us nourish our souls always, right? On Kardec Radio, nourishing our souls always. What a gift that we have these intercontinental classrooms so we can nourish our souls. So question 677. Why does nature itself provide for all the needs of the animals? Why does nature provide the animals' needs? The answer is everything in nature labors. Animals labor as you do. So it's not like animals lie around. They labor too. Is that news? Maybe we knew it because they obviously are hunting when they're in the wild, right? So animals labor as you do, but their work, like their intelligence, is limited to their self-preservation. So their objective is to survive. And so their labor goes around survival instinct. That is why labor does not lead to progress among animals. While among human beings, labor has a double objective. It's the preservation of the body and the development of thought. So see how important labor is? Any useful occupation. It is absolutely vital that we work. On more highly evolved worlds, are humans subjected to the same necessity of labor? So as we evolve and we go to higher worlds, do we still need to labor? The answer is, the nature of the labor is relative to that of the needs. The less material the needs, the less material the labor. Makes sense, right? So the less material we become, the less material our needs will be. Consequently, our labor will be less materia. Yet you must not assume that humans on such worlds remain inactive and useless. Idleness would be a torture instead of a benefit. So here again, doesn't matter what world we live in, doesn't matter how evolved we are, we still labor. And uselessness, there is never space for that. It will never benefit us or others. So that is unanimously the same. Aren't there those who are incapable of working at anything at all and whose existence serves no purpose? Are there people who cannot do any work? The answer is God is just and only condemns those who intentionally live a life that serves no purpose because they live by depending on other people's work. And that is exactly what happened to Angele. God is just and only condemns those who intentionally live a life that serves no purpose because they live by depending on other people's work. Remember Angele? She hired people to do the work for her. She did not engage with her children. She didn't clean her own house. She didn't take care. She didn't do fulfill her societal duties. Nothing. Now that is what falls exactly into that. However, God desires for all to make themselves useful according to their own faculties. So if we're lying in the hospital, even when we're about to excarnate, even if we're sick, even if our physical body doesn't really work, there's always a way to find to be useful. Always. We have our minds. As long as we have our minds, we have a way to be useful. And even if we don't, I'm sure there's ways. So we need to always look of how we can make ourselves useful, of how to do the good. How can we fulfill our duties, which is part of labor. We achieve our rehabilitation through hard work. Emmanuel says that in Thought and Life in the chapter of duty. We achieve our rehabilitation through hard work while we're putting good seeds into our garden. So I hope we understand the necessity of labor better and the definition, it's any useful activity. We want to be always useful because what happens if we're not? Then we're liable for all the good we omitted doing and the consequences that happen as a result of all the good we didn't do. We don't want that. All right, so let us continue. Fulfill all your duties without exception. Monad is telling us, fulfill them with zeal, enthusiasm, with courage, with perseverance, discipline, and your faith will uphold you. So fulfill all your duties without exception. Of course, we already mentioned that Emmanuel in Thought and Life, beautiful book here, I think I have it, Thought and Life, it is chapter 21. He spends a whole chapter on duty because duty is so important to fulfill for us in our lives. And how does Emmanuel, the beautiful educator who is so clear and to the point, how does he define duty? Do you remember? So he says, and it makes it so beautifully clear what duty is. Duty is a series of activities in the arena of goodness. So in other words, we're again doing the good. When we fulfill our duties, when we wake up in the morning and we tend to our children, now that we're at home and our children might be with us all day long, we fulfill our duty by giving them loving care. When we go to work, or if we fulfill our work duties at home right now, we do it with love and care. We're fulfilling our duty by doing the good. We're not cutting corners. We're not just looking at the watch and hoping the time is over or only doing the bare minimum. No, we're doing the good while we fulfill our duties. It is our obligation, Emmanuel says, to respect. It is our obligation to promote. It is our obligation to facilitate and support the common good. So he says this is our obligation. He's very strong, very clear. It is our obligation to respect, to promote, to facilitate, and to support the common good with patience, always being patient, tolerance, humility, and love. And it brings us back to the beautiful prayer of St. Francis, to always give rather than looking to receive. That keeps us useful. That helps us to fulfill our duty. That keeps us working. That allows us to labor for the good. That is our goal. So if we're not held we don't need to be held accountable for all the good we omitted doing. Right, friends? So, it is, I think, in chapter 10, Understanding, where Emmanuel asks us, suggests to us, teaches us, invites us. And he says, in order to undo the shackles that we have forged against our own soul, because remember, we are planting the seeds. We're either lazy and we're not laboring, we're not working, we're putting, seeds, painful seeds into our garden. So if we're to undo these shackles that we have forged against our own soul, because it's only we who do that, to undo them, we must seek goodness, we must feel goodness, we must visualize goodness, we must mold it with all the resources we have. That's a 24/7 job. That even includes our nights, our sleep. Even when we rest, hopefully we pray for intelligent sleep, that we can still labor then, that we can still fulfill our duties there, either through learning, educating ourselves, or doing the good. Right, friends? There's two wings that we need to develop equally strong for us to ascend, for all humans to ascend. One wing is studying, education. It's learning new skills. It's the intellectual development in us. Very important. And most of us on earth are a little more developed on that side. But the other one is equally important. And that is our moral transformation. That is loving. That's love in action. That's fulfilling our duty. And what does Emmanuel teach us? Charity begins where duty ends. So only once we've fulfilled all of our duties, that is absolute must, then comes charity. So we will be busy, right? Yay, we're working for the good. As Carol always says so beautifully, and I love it, Team Jesus, right, Carol? Team Jesus, yay. So let us wrap up our case here. So fulfill your duties with zeal, which is, I think it's zeal, enthusiasm, with courage. So we're putting our heart in, we're not giving up, we continue, we do it with perseverance, discipline. What did Emmanuel say to Chico Xavier when he asked Emmanuel what he will need to write all these books and do his charitable work? Well, Emmanuel said, you will need discipline, number 1. You need discipline, number 2. And you need discipline, number 3. So we need discipline. That's absolutely important. We need to educate our will, to align our will with God's will, so we'll stay on course. All right? So we fulfill our duties with enthusiasm, with courage, with perseverance, and that's what will support us in our faith. So there's never any space. We won't have time to be fearful or sad or anything. We will just, and when we feel sad, we look for people who are even sadder than we are, right? The prayer of St. Francis. We look for those, and by helping those who are equally or even sadder than we are, we will become less sad, because by giving we receive. Those who consciously perform the most ungrateful and vile tasks in your society are 100 times more elevated in the eyes of the Omnipotent than those who impose such roles on others while neglecting their own. They are all steps to be climbed towards heaven. Don't crush them beneath your feet. Know that you are surrounded by friends who are reaching out to you and who uphold those who put their strength in the Lord. So we're invited to not be lazy, to not give the cleaning of our house to someone if we just sit on the couch and watch soap operas. that we would not be fulfilling our duties, right, friends? So there is an assessment question for us, a therapeutic question. How well are we fulfilling our duties? How well are we focusing on being useful? On the scale of 0 to 10, are we kind of more lazy and we like other people to clean our toilets and take care of our children and do our grocery shopping, while we rather just groom ourselves or lie on the couch or go to parties and go out to eat? Or are we, oh yes, I wake up in the morning, I make Jesus's to-do list, and I'm ready to rock and roll. I am aligning my will with God's will, and I'm listening, and I am being useful all day long in the realm of goodness. I'm part of the peacemaker gang, so to speak. Right, friends? So this is kind of like our invitation for today, to kind of look inside and see where we could have a little more improvement. And I will do the same, of course. I'm always doing the same questions go for me. So now we wrap up. Know that you're surrounded by friends who are reaching out to you and who uphold those who put their strength in the Lord. We've been studying, and life goes on. And life goes on. One beautiful aspect, healing aspect of this book teaches us how much help there is in the spirit world for us, or for all of us. How we're being observed, supported, helped. Spirits around us, whispering good ideas into our ears. There is so much love around. And it is based on, let me go to Genesis actually. It is because we are actually swimming in we're swimming in God's presence, in love. And it is in Genesis where Allan Kardec explains, and we've pulled it out before, but it's so beautiful, and effort and repetition, right? That way we remember better. There's a chapter right at the beginning of the book, and it's called Providence, and it talks about God's providence, right? And it's a beautiful chapter. You're invited to read it, but we'll just pick out 2 sentences or 3. Providence is God's care for all creatures. God's care for all creatures, from the worm to the serial killer. It doesn't matter. It's like the sun. The sun is shining on everyone equally. Doesn't matter how tiny. It shines even on the coronavirus. God is everywhere, sees everything, and presides over everything, even the very smallest things. This is what providential action consists of. You see, we're always surrounded by seeing everything, presiding over everything. The smallest things do not fall through the cracks. And this help, this presence, is represented very often in the form of the good spirits. They're part of divine providence. But so here they explain divine providence as a fluid, so we can picture it better. So they say, let us imagine a fluid subtle enough to penetrate all objects. Let us imagine that, a fluid that's so subtle that it penetrates all objects. So it would be penetrating our bodies too. This fluid is divine providence. And it is endowed this fluid is endowed now with intelligence, perception, and sensitivity. It no longer acts blindly, but it acts with discernment. It acts with will and freedom. This fluid sees everything, understands everything, and feels everything. And with that, we can picture it really beautifully in the realm of good spirits, being the executors of this presence, always there to help us. So even if we feel, oh heavens, I have not been good in fulfilling my duties, let us not feel guilty, because that would just drip poison into us. That would just get us sick eventually. That's not the idea. We are supposed to live looking forward, always seeking the good, molding the good, feeling and visualizing the good. In the meantime, we know we love ourselves even though we have not been perfect, but as we move forward, we will keep on doing the good. And the minute we do that, we will have a phalange of good spirits around us, always supporting us. Friends, it is so hopeful. The message is beautiful. And now we know how to conduct ourselves. One little step better. We're reminded. Gabriel Inacio. Yes, go Team Jesus, Carol. All right, dear friends, we invite you to close your eyes for our closing prayer. And let us connect with divine providence. And let us imagine this fluid, this beautiful, subtle fluid that penetrates everything. And this beautiful fluid is intelligent and kind. It's observing us. It's seeing everything. It is supporting us. It's enveloping us. It is surrounding us and always aiding us. And let us connect with Jesus, who is one of those beautiful spirits always ready to support us. And his phalange of good spirits, the familial spirits, the mentor spirits, the angel spirits, always ready to support us. All we need to do is turn the mirror of our soul towards God through prayer, so we can connect and mirror back the divine light, the divine love, divine providence, aiding us, supporting us, whispering new ideas of how to fulfill our duties better, more enthusiastically, more courageously, more diligently, and showing us how we can create space for charity in our lives as well, starting with our thinking, with our feeling, with our words and our actions. Dear God, thank you so much for allowing us to be incarnated on this beautiful blue planet. Thank you for having this trust in us that we will be letting our light shine more every step of the way, so as to guide other souls on this planet with our little light. Let our little light shine brighter every single day. And we pray for all those on planet Earth who are suffering, that they too feel the support and love that is surrounding everyone. And with this and so much gratitude for tonight's beautiful reminder of how to labor, how to be useful, the importance of always doing the good and rather giving than looking to receive, we humbly ask for permission to close tonight's study. And so be it. Thank you, dear friends. Thank you so much for joining. We will continue our study next week, same time, with another, what are they? What is the spirit category? I'm sorry, with another hardened spirit. And we will learn more lessons alongside the gifts of these reports. God bless you, dear friends. We'll see you next week, so God willing. Bye.